The United Nations Assembly Hall was filled with tension. Diplomats from all over the world sat at their desks, their faces grim. In front of them stood an alien, though they couldn't quite tell what it was. The alien ambassador was encased in a strange, metallic bodysuit that covered everything from head to toe. The suit seemed to shimmer with energy, and the air around it hummed with power. Ambassador Valak had arrived under mysterious circumstances. The Zorathians, a species that had been silent for centuries, had suddenly made their presence known. A message had come through the communication channels. The Zorathians demanded that Earth submit to their rule or face destruction. Their fleet was already in orbit around Earth. Waiting for an answer? Sarah Barnes, a well-respected diplomat for the United Nations, sat in the front row, her hands clasped together. She had spent years negotiating with different alien species, but nothing had prepared her for this. The Zorathians were powerful, and their demands were not to be taken lightly. If Earth didn't comply, the entire planet could be wiped out in an instant. As Sarah looked at the ambassador, she tried to make sense of the situation. The bodysuit Valak wore wasn't just a piece of clothing. It was a symbol of the Zorathian people's advanced technology. The suit protected Valak from harm, allowed them to communicate, and even projected their thoughts. It was clear that the Zorathians were highly intelligent, and the ambassador was no ordinary envoy. Huma Valak's voice came through the translator, echoing in the assembly hall. "You have 3 days to respond. Submit to our rule, or your world will burn." The assembly broke into chaos. Some diplomats argued that they should surrender immediately. Others demanded that Earth fight back. Sarah, however, remained calm. She had been assigned to handle this negotiation, and she knew that her skills as a diplomat would be put to the test. If Earth was going to survive, she had to find a way to reach the Zorathians. Ambassador Valak, Sarah stood and addressed the alien, her voice steady. "Before any decision is made, we need to understand your people and your demands better. We do not want war." Valak's body shifted as if the suit was assessing Sarah's words. "You seek peace?" the voice asked, though it seemed more like a statement than a question. "I am not here for your peace, human. I am here to deliver your destruction unless you submit." The tension in the room grew even more intense. Sarah's mind raced, but she didn't show it. Instead, she focused on the ambassador, trying to read the subtle movements of the bodysuit. She could feel an unspoken weight in the air, a kind of pressure that made it hard to think straight. The suit seemed to be emitting energy, almost like it was alive. As Sarah's eyes met Valak's, something strange happened. For a split second, she felt a connection, a rush of emotions and thoughts flooding her mind. It wasn't just a feeling of fear or urgency. It was as if she could understand Valak on a deeper level, something beyond words. The bodysuit, though silent, seemed to pulse in response. "Ambassador, I think there is more to this than just your demands," Sarah said slowly. "You speak of destruction, but is that truly what you want? Do you want Earth to suffer?" Valak's suit emitted a soft hum, and the tension seemed to dissipate slightly. "You will never understand," Valak's voice echoed in her mind. It wasn't just spoken. She could feel it, like a thought shared between them. "Our race is dying. Our home world is being consumed by a force we cannot stop. We need resources, and you have them." The room was silent. Sarah's heart raced. She hadn't expected this. The Zorathians were a race on the brink of collapse. The pressure to save their own people had driven them to take extreme measures. But she couldn't understand why they had to threaten Earth. "Ambassador," she said, her voice firm, "tell me what happened to your world. If your people are truly dying, we might find a way to help, but not through war, not through destruction." For a moment, there was silence, and Sarah wasn't sure if Valak was going to respond. The hum of the bodysuit grew louder, almost as if the ambassador was processing her words. Finally, Valak spoke again, but this time there was a hesitation in the voice. "Do you know what it feels like to watch your home fall apart? To see your people perish? We've been searching for a solution for centuries. Nothing works. Nothing." The words were filled with pain, and Sarah could feel it in the bond forming between them. She stood up straighter. Connection was undeniable. Now, the ambassador was in pain, and that pain was shared with her. She wasn't sure how or why, but she could feel Valak's desperation. The ambassador wasn't a conqueror. He was a desperate leader, fighting for the survival of his people. "Tell me what we can do to help," Sarah said quietly. "We have resources, and we have technology. We'll not surrender, but we will help if we can." Valak's bodysuit glowed faintly, as if considering her offer. "You are different from the others. You offer help instead of resistance," the voice said. I will share more, but you must promise me something, human. You must promise that you will not betray us." "I swear it," Sarah said, her words honest. "We will help, but only if it leads to peace, not war." The alien ambassador nodded, or at least the suit seemed to. "Then we have 3 days to work together. If we fail, Earth will fall, and your species will never see the stars again." With that, Valak turned and began to walk away. Sarah felt a sense of both fear and determination rise within her. The fate of both Earth and the Zorathians rested on her shoulders now. She had 3 days to find a way to save both worlds. She wasn't going to fail, as she watched the ambassador leave the room. Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that their bond was just beginning. She didn't know how, but she knew that something was changing between them, something deep and important. And it was up to her to figure out what it was before time ran out. The room was quiet after Valak left, the hum of the ambassador's bodysuit still lingering in the air. Sarah Barnes sat at her desk, staring at the holographic display in front of her. She had always been good at reading people, but what had just happened in that meeting wasn't something she could explain. The connection with Valak was growing stronger, and she didn't know what it meant. She rubbed her temples, trying to process everything. The Zorathians were a race on the edge of extinction. The urgency in Valak's voice had been real. But why had Earth been caught in the middle of this crisis? Why had the Zorathians chosen to threaten Earth instead of asking for help? Sarah's mind raced. But there was one thing she couldn't shake off: the strange bond she felt with the ambassador. She stood up and paced across the room. Her mind went back to the moment when she had felt that rush of emotions from Valak: fear, pain, and desperation. It had been overwhelming. Sarah had dealt with many diplomatic crises, but this one was different. She wasn't just negotiating for peace. She was connected to the alien ambassador on a level she couldn't explain, and that scared her. The door to her office opened, and a colleague, James, walked in. He had been with Sarah for years, and they often worked on high-stakes diplomatic missions together. "Hey, Sarah," James said, his voice filled with concern. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Sarah glanced at him and forced a smile. "I'm fine. Just trying to make sense of all this." James frowned. "The Zorathians are not playing around. They've given us 3 days to respond. It's a short timeline. And it's not just Earth that's at risk. They have the power to destroy entire star systems." "I know," Sarah said, rubbing her forehead. "But something's not right, James. When Valak spoke, I don't know how to explain it, but I felt like we were connected. Like I could feel what he was feeling. It was overwhelming. He's not here just to conquer. He's desperate." James looked at her skeptically. "Are you sure?" "It's easy to get caught up in the moment. They're aliens, Sarah. We don't know what they're really after." "I'm sure," Sarah replied, her voice steady. "This isn't about power or control. This is about survival." James didn't say anything for a moment, but the look in his eyes told Sarah that he didn't fully believe her. It wasn't easy for anyone to accept that a diplomatic crisis could lead to something more complicated than what it seemed. But Sarah knew what she had felt, and she couldn't ignore it. "I'm going to meet with Valak again," Sarah said, making up her mind. "I need to understand more about the Zorathians and their situation. I need to figure out how we can help them." Without giving in to their demands, James nodded slowly, but his expression was still uneasy. "I hope you know what you're doing, Sarah. Be careful. You're getting too close to this. There's a lot at stake." "I know," she said, her voice firm, "but I have to do this." Later that day, Sarah was back in the assembly hall. Valak was waiting for her. The ambassador's bodysuit stood in the center of the room, still as silent and powerful as ever. Sarah walked toward it, her steps cautious. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her. "You've come back." Valak's voice resonated in her mind as though the words weren't spoken, but shared. "I need to understand. Sarah said, her voice soft but determined. I need to know what happened to your people. Why are you so desperate? And why are you threatening Earth? There was a pause before Valak spoke again. Our homeworld is dying. The planet itself is collapsing. A force from deep in space has been tearing it apart for centuries. We tried everything, every technology we could find, but nothing works. We need your resources, your knowledge, and if you refuse, we will take them by force. Sarah felt the sorrow in the words, and it broke her heart. But there has to be another way, she said, her voice filled with compassion. You don't have to destroy Earth. We're not your enemies. We want to help. Balak's bodysuit shimmered slightly, a soft light running through the seams. You are not our enemy, but time is running out. I cannot promise peace without your help. You do not understand the terror we face. Our people are dying, and we are watching it happen. Sarah's heart ached for Valak. She could feel the deep fear, the hopelessness in the words, and she knew. This wasn't just a diplomatic negotiation. It was something far deeper. This wasn't about power. This was about survival, and Valak was asking for help. Help that Earth might not be ready to give. How can we help? Sarah asked, her voice steady, despite the emotions swirling inside her. Valak's response came slowly. There is a technology buried deep in our ancient archives. It is the last hope of my people, but it is dangerous, and it may not work. We need your people to work with us, to unlock it. Tell me what we need to do, Sarah said. We'll do whatever we can. For the first time since Sarah had met him, Valak's voice softened. Oh. You are different from the others. You're not just seeking to protect your own world. You are trying to save mine. The words lingered in the air, and for a moment, Sarah felt the weight of them. She wasn't just representing Earth. She was representing all the hope that both her species and the Zorathians had left. The bond between her and Valak was growing stronger, and she didn't know how to control it. But she knew one thing for sure. If they didn't work together, both of their worlds would fall. Later that night, Sarah sat in her office, staring out the window at the stars. The weight of the situation was starting to settle in. Earth was facing a crisis, but so was Valak and his people. She had only a few days to find a solution. And as she thought about what had happened between her and the alien ambassador, she realized that the future of both their worlds depended on their ability to work together. The bond between them was just beginning to take shape, and Sarah wasn't sure how far it would go, but she was willing to find out, for the sake of peace, for the sake of survival. Sarah sat at her desk, staring at the holographic map of the Zorathian homeworld. Her mind was still processing everything she had learned from Valak. The Zorathians weren't just a species looking to conquer. They were desperate. Their planet was dying, torn apart by a force they couldn't control, and Earth was their last hope. She knew time was running out. The Zorathians had given Earth just 3 days to respond, and every second felt like it was slipping away. She stood up and walked over to the window of her office, looking out at the bright lights of the city below. Her thoughts drifted back to her conversation with Valak earlier that day. The connection between them had grown stronger. It was as if she could feel his emotions, his fears, and his desperation. It was both overwhelming and humbling. She didn't know how this bond had formed, but it was real, and it was something she couldn't ignore. Her communicator buzzed, breaking her thoughts. It was James. Sarah, we need to talk. His voice was urgent. She quickly answered the call. What's going on, James? I've just received a report, he said, his voice tense. There's a faction within the UN who doesn't trust the Zorathians. They've been gathering forces. They're planning to act before the deadline, and it doesn't look like they're aiming for peace. Sarah's heart sank. What are they planning? They're preparing for an attack. They want to strike first, just in case the Zorathians have any hidden motives. But if they do, it'll spark a war, James said. You need to get to the UN building now. Before Sarah could respond, the call ended. Her mind raced. The very people she had been trying to convince to seek peace were now preparing for war. She couldn't let this happen. Not when there was still a chance to save both Earth and the Zorathians. But how could she stop them? How could she get through to people who were so set on fighting? She quickly gathered her things, leaving her office in a hurry. As she stepped into the hallway, she felt a sudden chill run down her spine. It was a strange sensation, like someone was watching her. She turned, but no one was there. She shook her head, trying to push the feeling aside. There was no time to waste. As she arrived at the UN building, she was met by a group of armed soldiers blocking the entrance. Their faces were tense, their eyes scanning every person who passed. Sarah stepped forward, trying to keep calm. "I need to speak with the council," she said, her voice firm. The soldier at the front hesitated for a moment before nodding. "You're not authorized to enter, ma'am. Orders are strict." "Tell them it's urgent," Sarah insisted. "I have information that could prevent a war." The soldier hesitated, but eventually stepped aside. "Fine, go ahead." Sarah quickly made her way to the council chambers. As she entered, she found herself facing several high-ranking officials, including some of the most powerful leaders on Earth. Their expressions were grim, and Sarah could tell they weren't in the mood for diplomacy. "What's the situation?" she asked, trying to sound confident despite the growing tension. One of the officials, a tall man named General Cade, looked up at her. His eyes were cold. "We're preparing for action, Sarah. We can't afford to sit around and wait for the Zorathians to make the first move." "But that's exactly what they want," Sarah said, her voice rising with frustration. "They're not here to destroy us. They're here to survive. Their planet is dying. Valak told me everything." "How do we know we can trust them?" Cade interrupted. "How do we know they're not lying?" Sarah took a deep breath. She couldn't afford to lose her temper. "Because I've been talking to Valak. I've felt his desperation. His people are running out of time, just like we are." The room fell silent. The other officials exchanged uneasy glances, unsure of how to respond. "We don't have much time," Sarah said, her voice steady. "The Zorathians will take action if we don't help them. They're not our enemies. They're just trying to save their people." General Cade stood up, his face hard. "And if they're lying, this is just a trap to force us into submission?" Sarah shook her head. "It's not. If we attack, we will start a war that will destroy both of our worlds." For a moment, there was silence. The weight of her words seemed to hang in the air. Sarah knew she had made her case, but it wasn't enough to convince them. "Not yet." "We'll take this under advisement," Cade said finally, "but I'm not making any promises." Sarah nodded, feeling the weight of her failure. She had tried, but she knew it wasn't enough.
Ow!
The clock was ticking, and the chances of avoiding war were slipping away. As Sarah left the council chambers, her communicator buzzed again. This time it was from Valak. "You must leave immediately," the voice echoed in her mind. "There are those within your government who do not trust you. They are moving against you." Sarah froze. "What do you mean, who?" "The ones who want war," Valak replied. "They know about the bond between us. They are afraid of it. You are in danger." "Then what do I do?" Sarah asked, her voice frantic. "Come to me," Valak said urgently. "We must leave before they find you." Without hesitation, Sarah turned and ran. She didn't know where she was going or what she would do, but she knew one thing. If she didn't act fast, Earth and the Zorothians would be plunged into war. Sarah made her way to a hidden location where she was supposed to meet Valak. As she approached, she saw a figure standing in the shadows. It was Valak, his bodysuit glowing softly in the darkness. "You came," Valak's voice echoed, filled with relief. "We don't have much time. They are closing in." Sarah nodded, her heart racing. "What do we do now?" "We leave Earth," Valak said simply. "We go to the Zorathian fleet. There we can find a way to stop the war before it starts." Sarah hesitated. It felt like everything was happening too fast. But she knew there was no other choice. "Let's go," she said, her voice firm. Together, they walked into the unknown, knowing that the fate of both their worlds depended on what they did next. The journey to the Zorathian fleet was long and tense. Sarah Barnes sat in a small, secure shuttle, staring out at the stars. Valak, the Zorathian ambassador, sat across from her, the hum of his bodysuit filling the silence. The connection between them had deepened since they had first met. Sarah could feel his thoughts and emotions more clearly now, and she knew he felt the same about her. It was strange, unsettling. But it was also the only way they could communicate. Their bond was more than just a diplomatic connection. It was personal, it's emotional, and something neither of them fully understood. Sarah had never experienced anything like it before. She couldn't explain how, but she could sense his fear, his desperation, and oddly enough, a flicker of hope. Locke was no longer just an ambassador. He was a partner in this mission, and together they had to find a way to save both of their worlds. "We're almost there." Valak's voice came through the bodysuit's translator, though it sounded distant and mechanical. Sarah nodded, trying to shake off the anxiety creeping into her mind. They were entering the Zerothian fleet's territory. Now, there was no turning back. The stakes were higher than ever, and she wasn't sure if they could succeed. "Are you sure about this?" Sarah asked, glancing at Valak. "The Zerothians might not be willing to listen," he said. "Some of them are. Not so open to negotiation." Valak's bodysuit glowed softly in the dim light. "Many of my people are afraid of losing everything, of being wiped out. But there are others who understand. If we can reach them, if we can show them a way to survive, we might have a chance." Sarah didn't respond right away. She had learned that sometimes the best thing to do was to listen, to feel the emotions behind the words. Valak's pain was palpable, and it made her heart ache. She had seen the same desperation in the eyes of people on Earth. Fear of the unknown. Fear of extinction. It was something that both species shared as the shuttle approached the Zorthian fleet. The sheer size of it struck Sarah. The fleet was massive, its ships glowing with an eerie blue light. It was a stark reminder of the power the Zerothians had, even as they teetered on the edge of destruction. The fleet seemed to stretch on forever, silent testament to a species that had once been proud and mighty, now fighting for survival. The shuttle docked with a larger Zorothian ship, and Sarah felt the sudden weight of their mission settle on her shoulders. She wasn't just a diplomat anymore. She was humanity's representative in a conflict that could determine the fate of two worlds. Valak led Sarah through the ship, his bodysuit moving fluidly as if it were part of him. The ship was cold and sterile, its corridors dimly lit with blue light. Sarah felt out of place, a stranger in a foreign world, but she had no choice. She had to be strong, for Earth, for Valak. For everyone, they reached a large circular chamber where a group of Zorothian leaders were gathered. These were the ones Valak had mentioned, those who were willing to listen. Those who might be convinced to consider an alliance with Earth. Sarah took a deep breath and stepped forward. The Zorothian leaders were seated around a large table, their faces hidden behind masks that reflected the coldness of their civilization. They watched Sarah with a mix of curiosity and suspicion. Valak spoke first, his voice calm but filled with urgency. "We are running out of time," Valak said.
"Our
world is dying. The cosmic force that threatens us is growing stronger every day. Earth has resources that can help us, but we cannot afford to waste time. We need to act now, together, or both our species will fall." One of the leaders, a tall Zorothian with a scar running across his face, stood up. "And why should we trust you, Valak? You bring a human to our table? How can we be sure this isn't just another trick?" Sarah felt the weight of the accusation in his words. The Zerothians were right to be suspicious. Earth had been their enemy for years, and the idea of trusting a human was a difficult one. But Sarah wasn't here to make promises. She was here to offer a chance at survival. "I understand your fear," Sarah said, her voice steady. "But what do you have to lose? Your world is dying, and Earth is in danger too. We can help each other. We have technology, knowledge that can save both of our species, but only if we work together." The room fell silent. The Zorothian leaders exchanged glances, their eyes narrowing. Sarah could feel the tension building in the air. This was their only chance, and she knew it wasn't going to be easy. "We've been searching for a solution for centuries," said another leader, a younger Zorothian, with striking green eyes. "But nothing has worked. Why should we believe that Earth's technology will be any different?" Sarah's mind raced, but Valak stepped in before she could respond. "Because we are willing to work together, not as enemies, but as allies." The technology we need is hidden deep within our archives. It has the potential to save us, but we need Earth's help to unlock it. The bond between Sarah and I, he hesitated, it's more than just a diplomatic tool. It's the key. The Zorathian leaders seemed to consider this for a long moment. Finally, the leader with the scar spoke again. We will not surrender our power to a human, but if what you say is true, then we have no choice. We will give you a chance. Sarah's heart leaped in her chest. She had done it. For the first time, it seemed like there was hope. The Zorothians weren't completely against them. There was a way forward, but it was only a chance. Thank you, Sarah said quietly. We won't let you down. But even as the words left her mouth, she knew that this was just the beginning. The real challenge was yet to come. The Zorothian leaders had agreed to cooperate, but they still had to face the cosmic force that was destroying their planet. And the clock was ticking. As Sarah and Valak left the room, Sarah couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. But it was tempered by the knowledge that the path ahead was fraught with danger. The Zorothians had agreed to work with them, but they were still afraid. The fear of extinction ran deep, and it would take more than just words to overcome it. As they walked through the cold corridors of the ship, Sarah felt the weight of their mission pressed down on her once again. They had taken a step forward, but the real work was just beginning. It was still a long way to go, and she wasn't sure what the future held. But she knew one thing for sure. They couldn't stop now. The fate of two worlds depended on them, and failure was not an option. The Zorathian ship was a maze of corridors, each one darker and colder than the last. Sarah Barnes followed Valak down narrow hallways, the low hum of the ship's systems vibrating beneath her feet. It had been 2 days since the Zorathian leaders had agreed to work with Earth, and Sarah felt both relieved and anxious. They were now working together to unlock the ancient Zorathian technology. But the challenges were far from over. The truth was, they were still on the edge of disaster. The cosmic force threatening the Zorothians' homeworld was growing stronger with each passing hour. Earth's resources had helped them unlock some of the technology. But there was one final piece of the puzzle, one that would take both human and Zorathian minds working in unison to activate. Without it, the Zorathians would be doomed. If they failed, Earth would suffer the consequences too. Are you sure this is the right place? Sarah asked, her voice low as she followed Valak. The hallways were eerily quiet, and she felt like they were being watched. Valak turned to her, his bodysuit glowing faintly in the dim light. Yes, the final chamber is ahead. This is where the last piece of the technology is hidden. Sarah nodded, though a part of her felt uneasy. Something about this place felt different. It wasn't just the coldness of the ship or the vast emptiness around them. It was the feeling that they were running out of time. The final chamber wasn't far now, but she couldn't shake the sense that they were being watched. They reached a large circular door at the end of the hallway. The door was covered in strange symbols that Sarah didn't recognize. Valak stepped forward and placed his hand on the door, and for a moment the symbols glowed brightly. There was a soft hum, and the door slid open, revealing a vast, empty chamber inside. At the center of the room stood a large device, covered in more strange symbols and glowing with a faint blue light. "This is it," Valak said, his voice filled. With awe, Sarah walked into the chamber, her eyes scanning the device. It was like nothing she had ever seen. It was massive, almost otherworldly, with intricate patterns etched into its surface. The energy it gave off was palpable, and Sarah could feel the air around her hum with power. "I don't understand," Sarah said, turning to Valak. "What exactly is this? How does it work?" Valak hesitated, and for the first time Sarah saw a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. "This device. It's a remnant of our ancient civilization. It was built to harness the energy of the cosmic force that is destroying our world. But the technology was incomplete. It was never activated, and over time, it became lost. Now, with Earth's help, we've uncovered its secrets." "Still one problem." "What problem?" Sarah asked. "The key to activating it is something we don't fully understand. We need a combination of human and Zorathian energy to power it up. Our species are not the same, and the bond between us is the only way we can unlock the devices. Power. Sarah felt a chill run down her spine. You mean you need our bond to make this work? To save both our worlds? Valak nodded. Yes. Without it, the device will never function. We are too different. But the bond we share it allows us to merge our energy, to combine our strengths. That's the only way to make the device work.
Sarah's
heart raced. She had felt the connection between her and Valak growing stronger every day. She had never fully understood it, but now it seemed like their bond was the key to saving both their worlds. The pressure was overwhelming.
I don't
know if I can do this, Sarah said, her voice shaky. What if it doesn't work? What if we fail? Valak stepped closer to her. We won't fail. We can't. We've come this far together. If we do this, if we trust each other, we can save everything. You've already given so much. You've already come this far. Sarah looked at Valak, his glowing bodysuit reflecting the soft blue light from the device. There was no turning back. She had to do this. For Earth, for the Zorothians, for everything they had fought for. I'm ready, Sarah said, her voice firm. Let's do it. They stepped closer to the device, and Sarah felt the bond between her and Valak intensify. The moment they touched the device, the energy around them flared to life. The symbols on the walls glowed brighter, and the air seemed to crackle with power. Sarah could feel the hum of the device in her bones, and she closed her eyes. Letting herself focus on the bond with Valak, she could feel his emotions, his hopes, his fears, and she realized, that moment, how much they had shared. Their bond wasn't just a tool for communication or a means to unlock a device. It was a connection that transcended words. It was about survival. It was about unity. It was about two species working together to overcome a crisis that could destroy them both. The energy from the device surged, and Sarah felt her body fill with power. It was like nothing she had ever experienced. Her senses were heightened, and she could feel the energy from the Zorothian technology merging with her own. The device was coming to life. Slowly, the symbols on the walls began to shift and change, and the faint blue light grew brighter. The cosmic force threatening the Zorothian world was being pushed back. We're doing it, Sarah whispered, amazed. But just as she thought they had succeeded, there was a sudden jolt. The device flickered, and the room trembled. The energy around them began to grow unstable. Something's wrong, Valak shouted. We're losing control. The bond between them faltered, and Sarah could feel the device's power slipping away. Desperation filled her chest. If they didn't act quickly, everything would fall apart. Focus. Valak's voice rang in her mind. You'd have to trust me. Sarah closed her eyes and focused, pushing everything she had into the bond. She could feel Valak's energy merging with hers, and together, they pushed the device to its limit. With one final surge of power, the device activated, and the room was flooded with light. For a moment, everything was still. Then, the light dimmed, and Sarah opened her eyes. The device was glowing brightly, its energy stabilizing. She felt the bond between her and Valak solidify. It had worked. The cosmic force threatening the Zorothian homeworld was pushed back. The Zorothians had a chance to survive. Earth had a chance to survive. But as the room settled into silence, Sarah knew that this was only the beginning. They had won this battle, but the war for survival was far from over. They had to face the consequences of their actions. They had to rebuild. Together, they would face whatever came next. But for now, they had done it. They had saved both their worlds. The massive Zorothian ship rumbled softly as Sarah Barnes stood at the observation window, gazing out at the stars. The blue glow of the Zorothian fleet was visible in the distance, a stark contrast to the darkness of space. Earth and Zorothia had narrowly avoided disaster, but Sarah knew that the real work was just beginning. The device had stabilized the cosmic force that had threatened Zorothia's homeworld. But now, they needed to face the consequences of their actions. The alliance between Earth and the Zorothians had been formed. But would it last? Valak stood beside her, his bodysuit pulsing gently as though it were alive. The bond between them had grown stronger, and Sarah could feel his thoughts and emotions as though they were her own. There was still uncertainty in the air, but there was also something else: hope. For the first time, she felt like the future was wide open, full of possibilities. "We've done it," Sarah said quietly, still in awe of everything that had happened. "But now what?" Valak turned to her, his glowing eyes reflecting the light of the stars. "We must convince both our worlds to move forward together. It won't be easy. There are still those who believe war is the only answer." "I know," Sarah said, her voice filled with determination. "We've made a start. We've shown that peace is possible. We've proven that Earth and Zorathia can work together, not as enemies, but as allies." Valak nodded, his face serious. "It is a fragile peace, but it is a beginning." The silence between them was comfortable, but the weight of their shared mission hung in the air. Sarah had thought that once they activated the device and saved Zorathia, their work would be done. But now, she realized the true challenge was in the aftermath. The Zorathians had been on the brink of extinction, and Earth had been caught in the middle. Would both sides truly be willing to accept each other, or would old fears and suspicions tear them apart? "We need to go back to Earth," Sarah said, breaking the silence. "I need to speak with the UN. I need to show them that this isn't just about survival. It's about building something new." Valak's bodysuit shifted slightly as he considered her words. "And how will the UN respond? Will they be willing to listen?" "They will have to," Sarah replied. "We've saved Earth. We've saved Zorathia. The least they can do is listen to what we have to offer." Valak seemed to understand. "Then we will go together. But remember, Sarah, not all Zorathians will welcome this peace. Some will see it as a betrayal. We will face opposition, even from our own people." "I know," Sarah said, her voice steady. "But we have to try. We have to show them that the future can be different, that we don't have to fight." Journey back to Earth was quiet, with both Sarah and Valak lost in their thoughts. As the Zorothian ship entered Earth's atmosphere, Sarah felt a wave of relief wash over her. She had made it this far, but the real test was about to begin. The UN would have questions. They would want answers. Not everyone would be ready to embrace the Zorothians as allies. As the ship landed, Sarah felt her heart pounding in her chest. She wasn't sure what to expect, but she knew one thing: she couldn't do this alone. The future of both Earth and Zorathia depended on the choices they made in the next few days. When they stepped off the ship, they were met by a team of UN diplomats and military personnel. General Cade, the man who had once been skeptical of the Zorathians, was there, his expression unreadable. Sarah stepped forward, her heart racing. "General Cade," she said, her voice steady, "I've brought you the truth. Zorathia is saved. And with your help, we can make sure both our worlds survive." Cade's eyes flicked to Valak, and then back to Sarah. There was a long pause before he spoke. "Are you telling me we can trust them?" Cade's voice was low, full of suspicion. "I'm telling you, we don't have a choice," Sarah replied. "We can't keep fighting. Zorathia is not our enemy. The Zorathians are not here to conquer us. They are here to survive. We have the opportunity to work together, to build something new. But that will only happen if we trust each other." General Cade looked at Valak, who stood silently beside Sarah. The Zorathian ambassador's glowing bodysuit seemed to pulse in the dim light of the UN hangar. The tension was thick in the air, but Sarah refused to back down. "I understand your hesitation," Sarah continued. "I understand your fear, but I've seen the destruction that fear can cause. I've seen what happens when we don't trust each other, and I won't let that happen again." There was another long pause before Cade spoke again, his voice softer this time. "And what about the rest of the world?" he asked. "What about the people who don't want peace? What about the ones who believe Earth should fight, not negotiate?" "We'll face them together," Sarah said firmly. "But we need to show them that peace is possible. We need to show them that we're stronger together than we are apart." Valak stepped forward, his bodysuit glowing brighter as he spoke. "We Zorathians have learned the hard way what fear can do. We have lost so much, but we are not your enemies. We wish to help. We wish to work with you. not against you. Sarah could feel the sincerity in Volok's words, and she saw the hesitation in Cade's eyes. The general was still unsure, still afraid, but there was a flicker of hope there too. The seeds of trust had been planted. Now they just had to grow. The days that followed were filled with intense negotiations. The UN Council convened again, and Sarah was at the center of it all. Working to bridge the gap between Earth and the Zorthians, some resisted, some still believed that the Zorthians posed a threat. But more and more people began to see that this was their chance to build something new. The decision to trust each other was not easy, but it was the only choice they had. Valak remained by Sarah's side through it all, a constant reminder of the bond they had formed. Their connection had only grown stronger, and Sarah knew that together they could face whatever came next. As the UN session came to a close, Sarah stood before the council, her voice strong. "We've made it this far. Earth and Zorthia are not just surviving, we are rebuilding. Together." The council nodded, and Sarah could see the change in their faces. There was still fear, still uncertainty, but there was also something else: hope. Hope for the future. Hope that together they could create something better. Sarah turned to Valak, her heart full. They had done it. They had saved both their worlds. And now they would build a future together, united by trust and hope. The dawn of a new era had begun.